everyone, and welcome to lesson number 21. Today we will talk about arrays in Java. First of all, open up your Eclipse program, go to the Package Explorer. Let's create a new Java project and name it lesson 21. Like we always do, go to the source file, right click, create a package, and inside this package we can place our main class, which contains the main method. You can either write it yourself or let the auto-completion do the thing for you. So, in Java, an array is a data structure which stores a fixed size sequential collection of elements of the same type. Also, you can think an array as a collection of elements of the same type. A collection of integers, for example. Really important, I don't care how you learned how to count in school. In Java, arrays always start at 0. You will start counting at 0, not 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2. So if you say 3 in Java, it is not 1, 2, 3, it is 0, 1, 2. Now that we cleared up some things, let's start our journey. How can you create an array? You can create an array of integers, for example, by saying int. Then you can open up your brackets, and then you say a variable name, for example, my array, and the semicolon. And now you have an array of integers, and this array is stored inside the variable myArray, but you haven't given yet the number of the elements inside the array. How big is your array? In order to declare our array, the size of our array, we must call the myArray, the variable, and then we can say new integer array. And inside the brackets we will place the size of the array, for example 5. Now you have created an array with a size of 5, and the start values of an array is always 0. Here, let's place it in a comment, you have created the integer at the place 0, which has a value of 0. Then you have created the integer in the place of 1, which have the value of 0, and so on until integer place 4, which have the value of 0. Why 4 and not 5? Well, as I stated before, in arrays you start counting by 0. So if you count 0, 1, 2, let's place it in the comments, 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. And we can write it like that. Voila. So, how can you place a value inside this array? You don't need only zeros. You can say, for example, my array, and then you can say that I want in the position 0 the number of 4. You can also say I want in the position 3 the number 2. How is your array now? Your array now is like that. It's like my array in the place of 0 you have the value of 4. Then you have, let's copy it, it will be faster. Then you have my array in the place of 1 with the value of 0. Then you have my array in the place of 2 with the value of 0. Then you have my array on the place 3 with the value of 2, as you can see here. And then, last but not least, you have my array in the 4 position with a value of 0. Because you haven't declared the others. You have declared only the 0 position and the 3 position. And how can you print it out on our console? Using the system out print line, of course. And then you can say my array, and we can say I want to see what's hidden inside the position 0 of my array. Let's save it and run it. And you can see the number 4 is hidden there. If we say I want to see what's hidden inside my array in the place of 1, we can see that 0 is hidden there, like we stated here. If we say I want to see my array in place 2, and also I want to see my array in place 3, let's see it happen. As we stated here, in the place of 0 you have the number 4, in the place of 1 you have the number 0, in the place of 2 you have the number 0, and in the place of 3 you have the number 2. But what happens if we want to see my array, for example, the position 5? Is there any position 5 here? Actually no, because this array goes until the position 4. Let's try this out. And you take an exception, Java-lang array index out of bounds exception. That's because Java says to you, Java tells you, hey, there isn't any my array 5 because my array goes until 4. So we can cancel that and delete it. Now we can also create arrays of objects like we saw before. An object, we can store an object inside a variable, and we can use it like we use normal data types as integer. Let's create another class. We can name it flower. We can say that our flower has a private string name and has also a private integer growth, like we saw on our previous lessons in the class flower. We can also create a constructor. So generate constructor, we can say generate constructor with both fields, and voila. And what we also need is a toString method. Public string, toString. We also saw the toString method, and I can show you later on why we need the toString method. And we can say return my flower is called, and then you can say name, plus you can say and its growth is, you can also place the growth here. So our toString method is also ready. We can go back to our main. And now, as we did in our previous lessons, how can we create an object? How can we create an array of objects? Here we did say the data type and then these brackets. We can do the same thing using the data type flower, because don't forget that our class is also our data type. So we can say I want an array of flowers, and we can call this array my flower array. And now, how can we put a new flower? How can we say how long the our array is? Exactly using the same way here. We can say my flower array, and the value that we want to give it is a new flower array, and let's say this time 3. I want my array, or 2, or even 2 is better. I want my array to have how many objects? Not 2, 3 objects. 3 objects. Why? Because we have the object number 0, 1, and 2. I will say it 100 times until you understand it. Arrays always start from 0, not from 1. If we say 2, we mean 3. Now, how can we give a value because to our elements inside this array? Because if I try now to print out my flower in the position number 0, this is not flower, this is my flower array. What do we write wrong? My flower array. Voila. I'll try to do it, and I take the value of null. Let's create an empty space here. I take the value of null because if I create a variable of an integer, the value that the system, that Eclipse, that Java gives it, the start value, is always a 0. But with objects, the start value of an object is always null, which means 0, also in German. So I have null, I don't have any objects. How do I add an object inside my array in the place 0? Exactly like with an integer. We say, for example, my flower array, I want in the position 0 to have the value of, I can't say 4, for example, because it's an object. I need a new object of this type, of the type flower. And what do I need for this object? The constructor asks always for a name and growth. A name of the type string and the growth of the type integer. This means that I need a new object of the type flower. And what does the constructor asks? He asks for a string, for a name, let's say Lily, and the growth, let's say 5. And now we can save it. And in the position of number 0, we have this new flower. So if I press the run now, and I ask for this 0, I take my flower is called Lily, and its growth is 5. Why? Because I have the my toString method here. If I place this method inside the comment, I save it and try to run it again, then what I take is the place that my object lies inside my memory. That's why I need the toString method, in order to take for a string to be returned instead of the memory place. This is with objects. you can also add an object in place 1 and place 2 here, like we did before with integers, but let's skip that part and go further. We can also add a new empty space here, and we can move on with how to add many elements at once inside an array. As we saw before, we can do it either one by one, or like there's also another way to do it, like you write a data type, for example integer or string or something like that, and then you open up the curly brackets and you write, the curly brackets are these ones here, and you write, for example, value 0, there is the value 1, the value 2, the value 2, and so on. And then the semicolon, don't forget the semicolon. You can also add values like that. You can also see it, because sometimes it is better if you see it. So we can say integer, my second array. So we created an array of integer, and we stored it. So we stored this array inside the my second array, and then we can say, or yeah, let's use it. Let's use this way, and we can say here integer, like I want to have the value of 5, of 6, of 3, and then again the number 3. Up my second array. Let's put it correctly here. Variable name. So what I wrote here is that, and now I have an array of 0, 1, 2, 3 of 4 items in total, and if I say now I want my second array, and I want to grab the third element, the element in the position 3, what would I take? So this is the position 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I say give me this one, I will take 3. If I say I want the one for my second array in the position of 2, 2, what would I take? 0, 1, 2. This should be also the number 3, and it is the number 3. And if I say, for example, you can give me the element, the first element of this array, which is the number 0, I should take the number 5. The number 5. So this is another way to put some values inside an array, or like we did before, or we can do it with a for loop. And be careful that we can't extend an array. Arrays have always the same size. If I create an array of 5 elements, I can't make place for more elements. I will always have this array, which will always have 5 elements. This is like that. This works like that. Let's see now how we can add multiple arrays, multiple values inside an array. We will create an empty space here, and then we can create our for loop. This is the tricky part. We have an empty array, let's say an array of 5 elements, and we will call it my third array. My third array, and then we will say my third array, his new integer and has 5 values. So, and then we will create a for loop, and we will first declare a local variable, an integer, and we will say integer I has a value of null. Then we stop. Semicolon means you can change the line. And then you say, while I is less than my third array, and then we call the method length, then you can add 1 to this number. You can increment the number by 1. I know it sounds really complicated at start. And then you say that I want my third array, the element I, to take the value of I. And if you do that, if you do this for loop, you will take the following outcome. Your my third array, let's make it so. Your my third array 0 will be the 0. Your my third array 1 will be 1. Your my third array 2 will be 2, and so on. Let's go together through this loop, because it's not that easy to understand. First, we create a local variable I. This lives and dies only here, inside here. And then we say, as long as the I is less than the length of the array is 5. Then increment by 1, and it goes like that. You start with a local variable. We put that aside, and you say I is 0. Let's try to show it. I is 0. This is the first loop. I is 0. So this is I is 0, and you say while 0, because you say while I is less than the length of the array, less than 5, then you go here. Then you say my third array I, at that point I has the number of 0. So you say my third array 0 has a number has a value of I. At this point I is 0. So you say that. And then when this is over, it goes right here, and you increment the I by 1. So at the end of the first loop, the I takes 1 and becomes 1, because it was 0. So we can say 0 plus 1 equals 1. So for your next loop, you have an I with a value of 1. And you say, is the I less than the length? So you say, is 1 less than 5? If yes, then you go here inside your this block of code, and you say my third array I in this round is 1 equals 1. So practically you say that. And then when you're ready with that, you go back here into this third tile, third part, and you say that I increment I by 1. I is 1. So incremented by 1, you will have 2. You will have the number of 2. And it goes on like that. Let's make one more. Then your I will have the value of 2, and you say while 2 is less than 5. We can say that here. And then you say I increment I by 1, the value is 2, increment it by 1, you take the value of 3 and so on, until it reaches this point where your I will be 5. And you say, is 5 less than 5? No, this is not correct, because 5 is not less than 5, it is equal to 5. So the moment that this expression here is false, you go out of the loop, and at that point you have completed your array list. Your array. Sorry, your array is full with numbers. And if we want to print out these numbers, we can also use this for loop, and we can say integer. Let's use now the j, for example, because as you recall, this I here is only a local variable. It's like you go here and you write, for example, integer I has a value of 0. It is exactly the same thing. So we can give I another name. We can say integer my variable, and go on. We can do it with my variable if it's best, if it's better for you. Let's do it with my variable, and then you say my variable length sorry, and then you say my variable, while my variable is less than my third array length, and then you increment with by 1, and you say we will do it later, and then you say you can print out my third array my variable, and let's run it. And then we have an exception. Let's see, unresolved compilation problem, duplicate local variable I. Here in that let's see, our problem is here. Yes, we took an error because we declared also the same variable name here as a global one. So now it should work. And let's also make this one correct, because here we increment my variable, and let's run it. And as you can see, we have created a new array here, my third array, with 5 elements, and using this for loop, we have given values to every one of these elements. You can see it here, and then we have printed out this array like that. And let's go step by step also with this array. What do we do here? We say that, let's make a multi-comment section. We say that we have a my variable 0, and then we say while this my variable, while this 0 is less than the my length, my third array length, which is 5, then you will print out my third array my variable. My third array my variable is my third array 0, because my variable is 0. So practically you say you can print out this thing here. And as we did it here above, we gave it my third array 0. Here is my third array 0, the value of 0. You can see it here. So we take back 0, and then you say, when you're ready with this code of block, go and increment my variable by 1. So my variable becomes 0 plus 1 becomes 1. No, I'm sorry, becomes 1. So we have 1 here. And you say, while 1 is less than 5, then you can print my third array, my variable. My variable is now 1. So you can print my third array 1, which is 1. And then you increment it by 1, and you have my variable 2. And you say, while my variable, which is 2, is less than the length of my third array, which is 5, then print the my third array 2, which is 2, and so on until you have 4. Because at some point you have 4 here, you take here 4, and then you increment it by 1, then my variable is 5, and you say, while my variable which is 5 is less than 5, which is not correct because it is equal, then do that. But you don't do that because it is not correct, and you just escape this block of code and go outside, and you have printed out what we saw here, the whole array. Another way to do it, and I will close this video with that because we are at 31 minutes, is a for each loop. And I will go again and again in detail with for loops and how we can print arrays, how we can do many things with arrays. Another way to do it is the for loop, the for each loop. For each loop, you say in a for each loop, for example, let's create an array, or let's print this array. You say for, and then you say the data type. The data type here is integer in this array. Let's go to this array. Here is integer. And then you create, you just create simply a variable. Let's call it the element. And then you write, while integer element inside, and then you write the array number, my third array. Then you open up the curly brackets and you say what you want. For example, I want to be printed, let's create a space here. I want to be printed this element here. And you have the same array, the same output with that. So you can simpler, you can write this for loop, you can write it as a for each loop. You just say for that type integer, and you create a variable element inside this array. You go each time you go to this loop, print out this element, and practically you do the same thing as here, but it's you write it with this way in the compiler. We will make in the future many examples with that, and you will completely understand how it works. But you can also try it with other arrays, or with the same array, just use another variable name, for example, other name inside this array, and then you can say I wanted to print it out, other name, and if we also put a space between them and we run it, we take the same array. You practically do the same thing, you just use another variable name. So this lesson is already 35 minutes. That was it. It is a little complicated, I know, but if you practice again and again and read the documentation, you will be able to understand it. And as we go on with this course, with these tutorials, we will make so many examples that you will finally understand how an array really works. That was it for today. Thank you all for watching.